My daughter uninvited me from Thanksgiving. She said I embarrass her mother-in-law, that having me there would make her look bad. Those were her exact words, spoken as calmly as if she were reading off a grocery list. I am Marin Caldwell, 62 years old. The call came while I was standing at my kitchen counter, halfway through mixing the pumpkin batter I always start a few days early. I had imagined Hazel's family tasting it this year, just like they had every year since she married Owen. But her voice was different this morning, smoothed out, clipped at the edges, like she had rehearsed it. Mom, Elaine thinks it would be awkward if you're here with her friends. I think it's better if you sit this year, she said. Her silence afterward told me she was waiting for me to make this easy for her. Because of Elaine, your mother-in-law. You mean she said something I asked? Hazel hesitated, only a breath. She just thinks sometimes you say things that come off the wrong way. I knew what that meant. Elaine, with her polished manners and curated social circles, had never liked that I spoke plainly. She mistook honesty for rudeness and simplicity for shame. Hazel had started adopting her phrases months ago, borrowing her tone the way a child borrows a coat that does not fit, but wants to impress someone who is watching. So, you don't want me there, I said. Hazel exhaled. It's one dinner. Mom, please just understand where I'm coming from. One dinner, one holiday, one daughter choosing someone else's pride over her own mother. I told her I understood, because the alternative was begging. And I promised myself long ago I would never beg for a place at my own child's table. When the call ended, the bowl in front of me felt heavier. My hands stayed still for a long time, as if the truth needed space to settle. I washed them slowly, one by one, letting the warm water soften the cold in my chest. I had thought Hazel's distance was temporary, a phase born from new marriage and new expectations. But this was something different. Not a misunderstanding. Not a moment of irritation. This was a line being drawn. And as I dried my hands, I felt the quiet shift of something I could not name, yet something that would take shape the next morning. When Hazel, her mother-in-law, and Owen appeared at my door. Hazel did not always speak the way she did on that call. There was a time when her voice carried warmth, the kind that curled around a room and made everything feel easier. That softness began changing the year she married Owen Hayes. I liked Owen from the start. He was steady, gentle in a way that did not draw attention to itself, a quiet man raised in a quiet home. When he came to dinners at my place, he helped with dishes without being asked and always checked if Hazel needed a break when conversations stretched too long. But marriage brought Hazel into a different world, Owen's world. Or, more accurately, Elaine Hayes' world. I met Elaine the night before the wedding. She reached out to shake my hand, her fingers stiff, her smile practiced. You raised a lovely daughter, she said, a bit unpolished. But that can be refined. Hazel laughed nervously beside her, the same way a child laughs when someone squeezes their shoulder too hard. From then on, things shifted. Hazel's wardrobe changed first neutral tones, structured fabrics, nothing that wrinkled. Her words changed next, trimmed clean of anything that might sound too emotional or too honest. When I asked if everything was all right, she said, Mom, you read into things too much. In the exact cadence Elaine used the first time she dismissed me. Owen noticed, unease flickering in his eyes, but he stayed silent, unsure how to intervene without conflict. Once, after a family dinner at the Hayes house, he lingered at my car while Hazel went inside. She tries hard, he murmured. My mom, she has strong opinions. I knew what he meant. At the table, Elaine corrected Hazel's phrasing, her posture, even the way she cut her vegetables. Hazel nodded every time with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. The more Hazel tried to impress Elaine, the farther she drifted from me, over months. Subtle changes began phrases, posture, and choice of words. Always careful, always measured. And when she uninvited me from Thanksgiving, her tone carried none of her history, only Elaine's authority wrapped in my daughter's voice. I could feel that distance widening, even before they showed up at my door the next morning. Hazel did not grow up in a house where anyone stood between her and the world except me. Her father left when she was 9, after a fight that ended with a slammed door and silence that lasted the rest of our marriage. When he walked out, Hazel watched from the hallway, clutching the hem of my shirt. I promised her she would never be alone, and I kept that promise, piece by piece, year by year. When she was 16 and wanted to join the school choir, but worried about the uniform fee, I told her, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of. I worked an extra shift at the clinic that month, coming home with my back tight and hands aching. She held the outfit against her chest like it was magic. Thanks, Mom, she whispered. I still hear that version of her sometimes. When she moved into her first apartment at 20, the pipes burst 3 days later. Her voice trembled on the phone. I do not know what to do. I'm on my way, I said. I spent half the night cleaning, the other half calling a plumber I barely had money for. Hazel sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, apologizing between tears. I told her it was all right. When she and Owen struggled that first year rent, car repairs, the small emergencies that stack up, I helped without comment. I covered the mechanic bill that month, nearly $2,000, and helped with small emergencies after, careful to budget the bakery's savings. When she said her pantry looked empty, she always said, I'll pay you back. And I always said, you don't need to. These were the things I carried, quietly, the way mothers often do, not because anyone demanded it, but because loving Hazel had never felt like a burden. Only now, remembering those moments, did I feel the weight of how long I had been holding everything up by myself, long before Elaine ever entered her life. Long before Hazel learned to choose someone else's comfort over mine. And by the time they arrived at my door the next morning, all of those years sat between us like a second silence. They came earlier than I expected, earlier than anyone should show up at someone's house without warning. I had barely finished making coffee when loud, hurried knocks rattled the door. Hazel's voice came through first, tight and sharp. Mom, open the door. We need to talk. I opened it to find all 3 of them on my porch, Hazel pale and tense, Owen standing a half step behind her, and Elaine wrapped in a coat that looked too elegant for a morning like this. Her expression was the first thing I noticed, disapproval pressed into every line of her face. Hazel hesitated, glancing at Elaine. Elaine stepped forward, voice crisp. Your daughter's aunt called me last night. She said you told her you had been excluded. That made us look irresponsible. I stared at her. I answered her question honestly. She asked where I would be for dinner. I said home. That is not honesty, Elaine snapped. That is manipulation. Hazel folded her arms. Mom, people are talking. It looks like you tried to make us seem cruel. Hazel, I said quietly. You told me I wasn't welcome. I simply repeated that. That is not the point, Hazel insisted. You made it sound dramatic. Elaine sliced in. It is embarrassing. Owen and Hazel are hosting important guests. My friends know how to behave with grace. They do not air private matters. My hands curled at my sides. I didn't air anything. Hazel glanced nervously at Elaine before speaking again. It's just, you could have handled it differently. There it was, that glance. That flicker of fear I had learned to recognize. Hazel was not leading this conversation. Elaine was. Owen finally spoke. Marin, maybe we should slow down a little. Elaine cut him off with a quiet, controlled. Owen? His mouth shut immediately. Hazel pressed on. We need to fix this before Thanksgiving. People already think something happened. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You three came here because you're afraid of gossip. No, Hazel said quickly. We came because you created a misunderstanding. I repeated your words. I said. Elaine let out a breath of forced patience. You always twist things. Marin, this has been a pattern for years. Hazel nodded as if on cue. Mom, you know how easily people misinterpret you. And now, Elaine added, Owen's colleagues are asking questions. This is becoming bigger than it should. Owen shifted uncomfortably, but didn't speak. I looked at Hazel, the daughter I raised alone, the girl who once cried into my shoulder over choir auditions, and saw her standing beside a woman who taught her to apologize for existing. Hazel still wouldn't meet my eyes fully. They weren't here for clarity. They were here for control. And beneath all their anger, something else flickered fear of a truth they didn't want spoken. Elaine stepped farther into the doorway, as if the house already belonged to her. This is exactly why we cannot include you in every event. Marin, you create tension where none exists. Hazel nodded quickly. You overthink everything. You always have. It makes things harder for everyone. I repeated what you told me. I said, nothing more. Elaine's voice sharpened. You said it in a way that invited sympathy. You know how people react to you. Hazel added softly. Mom, you do make things emotional. People do not always know how to respond. I felt heat rise in my chest. I said I would stay home because that is what you asked. That is not what we meant, Hazel insisted. You meant exactly that, I replied. Hazel blinked hard, and for a moment she looked like the daughter I knew hurt. Unsure, then she straightened her shoulders. Mirroring Elaine's posture. You always think the worst, she said. Maybe that is why people misunderstand you. Elaine gave a satisfied nod. As if Hazel had answered correctly on a test. The only one who had not spoken was Owen. He stood behind them, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. When he finally lifted his eyes to mine, there was something there, guilt, urgency, something trying to surface. He looked like a man who had been holding back a truth that no one else wanted said. Owen shifted again, the movement small but sharp against the tension around us. Hazel and Elaine were still speaking over each other. Hazel pleading for me to understand. Elaine lecturing about proper behavior when Owen finally lifted a hand. Enough, he said quietly. Both women froze. Owen rarely interrupted Elaine. The fact that he did now made the air tilt. Elaine recovered first. Owen, this is not your place to... It is. His voice didn't rise, but it dropped into something firmer, because none of this is what really happened. Hazel's head jerked toward him. Owen! Please, no, he said. Your mother needs to hear this. All of you do. Elaine stiffened. What exactly are you implying? Owen looked at me. Marin, Hazel never said you embarrassed anyone. She repeated my mother's words. Elaine's face drained of color. He continued. The only person who had an issue with you at Thanksgiving last year was my mom. She thought you were too direct. She told Hazel you lacked finesse. She said having you there made the family look less refined. Hazel's breath hitched. Owen, you told her that, he said gently, but without backing down. Hazel didn't come up with any of this on her own. A tremble moved through Hazel's shoulders. Elaine stepped closer to her, protective in a way that felt more like possession. That is not relevant, Elaine snapped. It is, Owen replied, because Marin deserves to know the truth. I felt Hazel's eyes on me, wide and terrified. Mom? I just didn't want anyone to think Owen didn't let her finish. There's more. Marin. Hazel told me not to mention the money, the help, all the times you stepped in. His voice lowered. You paid nearly $2,000 for our car repairs the year we couldn't afford it. You covered groceries more times than Hazel ever admitted, and you never asked for anything back, Hazel whispered. I didn't want you to think we were failures. I didn't, I said quietly. Owen swallowed hard. Your mom has been helping us, and my mother still treated her like she was beneath us. I should have spoken up sooner. Elaine's voice sharpened. That is enough. No. Owen said again, this is the truth. You've been controlling Hazel for years. She bends every part of herself to please you, and now she's hurting her own mother because she's afraid of disappointing you. Hazel's lip trembled. Mom? I didn't mean I stepped forward, placing a steady hand on the doorframe. Hazel looked young again, too young for the weight she carried. The truth was finally on the table, and none of us could pretend it wasn't there anymore. Elaine reacted first. Her chin lifted, her voice sharpening like glass. Hazel, you are not required to stand here and listen to this. Owen is confused. He always misinterprets my intentions. I'm not confused. Owen said, I'm tired. Hazel flinched at the word. She looked between us, her husband, her mother-in-law, her own mother, as if choosing where to stand might cost her something she could never get back. Mom, Hazel whispered to me, I didn't want you to feel judged. Elaine snapped. You were protecting our reputation. Do not apologize for that. Hazel turned toward her. Our reputation. Her voice cracked. You mean yours? Elaine's expression faltered for the first time all morning. Hazel, she warned, be careful what you say. Owen stepped closer to Hazel. You do not need to perform anymore. Not for her, not for anyone. I wasn't performing, Hazel said, though the words trembled. I just wanted to be good enough for who I asked softly. Hazel's eyes filled. Everyone? Elaine moved in front of her, almost shielding her from me. This is exactly why I did not want Marin involved in every family event. She brings up emotions and makes things messy. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, but recognition. You mean she brings up the things you do not want said? Elaine's mouth tightened. I have only ever tried to guide her. Someone had to. Hazel winced at that. It was small, barely there, but unmistakable. Guide her. Owen echoed. You controlled her. Every outfit, every phrase, every decision, you taught her to be afraid of disappointing you. That is not true, Elaine said quickly. Hazel's voice wavered. It is. I never relax around you. I never know which version of me is acceptable. Elaine stared at her like she'd been slapped. I gave you standards. You gave me rules. Hazel whispered. Rules that never included my mom. Silence fell between us. Heavy and dense. Owen reached for Hazel's hand. She let him hold it, her fingers trembling in his. The perfect image Elaine had built, polished. Rigid. Suffocating was cracking right in front of her, and she did not know how to stop it. Hazel finally looked at me, tears slipping free. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought if I kept everyone happy, everything would stay together. But nothing about us looked together now. Everything they had tried to preserve was breaking apart, piece by piece. Right there on my doorstep. Hazel kept her head down, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. Elaine hovered beside her, stiff and offended, as if Hazel's emotions were an inconvenience she had not planned for. I took a slow breath. Hazel, I said, I am not going to keep doing this. Her eyes lifted. Doing what? Absorbing everything. Fixing everything. Pretending everything is fine because you're afraid of what she might think. Elaine straightened. That is uncalled for. It is the truth. I said, and I am done. Hazel stepped forward. Mom, please, we just need to get through this week. Maybe, after some time, we can start talking again. No, I replied. Not this time. I am not coming to dinner. I am not smoothing anything over. I am not paying for repairs or groceries or emergencies. I love you, but I cannot keep giving pieces of myself to hold your life together. Hazel's face crumpled. I never meant for you to feel used. I know. I said gently, but that is what has happened. Elaine's voice sharpened. You are overreacting. This is a simple misunderstanding. It is not simple, I said, and it is not mine to fix. Owen exhaled. Quiet, but relieved. Hazel looked between us, realizing something truly was shifting. For the first time in years, I let the silence belong to them instead of me. I spent Thanksgiving morning in a quiet kitchen, not the silence of exclusion, but the kind that let me breathe. By noon, the doorbell rang twice in a row, Mrs. Albright from next door holding a pie, and Jonah from down the street carrying a pan of roasted vegetables he admitted he almost burned. You sure you do not mind us crashing your holiday? Jonah asked. I invited you, I said. That is different. We gathered around my small table. 3 neighbors, a retired mail carrier I had known for years, and a young couple from the building behind mine who had nowhere else to go. It was mismatched, a little loud, and nothing like the polished dinners Elaine orchestrated. I had hesitated, but the warmth of their choice made the quiet room feel lighter. Albright lifted her glass. To making our own traditions. The others echoed her, and for the first time in a long while, I felt warmth that was not forced. During dessert, Jonah leaned back in his chair. Feels good in here, he said. Real. I smiled. It does. There were no sharp glances, no hidden expectations, no one waiting to correct me. Only people choosing to sit with me because they wanted to, not because reputation required it. As the night settled, laughter carried more easily than it ever had in a room full of family, and I realized I had built something here quietly, slowly, without knowing I was doing it. Hazel came a few days later, after taking time to think. Alone. No footsteps behind her, no sharp presence hovering at her shoulder. She stood on my porch with her hands tucked into her sleeves, looking smaller than she had in years. Mom, she said softly. Can we talk? I stepped aside. Come in. She hesitated before sitting at the table, the same chair she used to do homework in. I'm sorry, she said, for all of it. I let things get twisted. I let her decide how I should feel. I thought if I kept her happy, everything else would stay steady. I sat across from her. You have been carrying too much. Hazel's voice cracked. I did not mean to push you away. I did not mean to hurt you. I did not know how to say no to her. You do now, I said. Hazel nodded, wiping her cheek. I want to fix things between us, not because someone expects it, because I miss you. I reached across the table, resting my hand over hers. We can rebuild. Slowly, a shaky breath left her. Almost a release. Thank you, Mom. For the first time in a long time, her voice sounded like her own again.